Hello everyone, TheMrTrails here. Today we're going over shock weapon recycle builds for every weapon, and you might find this to be the new best casual build for you, especially in the hunting grounds. Like, subscribe, let's get into it. So the base form of this build is going to be the exact same, and anything you might change depending on personal preference would be in the lantern or in the weapon. So let's go over the Omnicell, lantern, and the armor pieces first, and then I'll say what I would change about each weapon. The best all-around Omnicell is going to be Revenant, and when you're playing Revenant, you are going to want to play the Scar and Lantern, and inside we're going to put a catalyst, or if you don't want to play with tonics, then you can put a reuse cell in here. And then for the armor pieces, we are going to have the Time Weave helmet with cunning inside, the Time Weave robes with overpower inside, the Malkarian gloves with recycle inside, and the Thrax boots with pulse inside. If you are using tonics, then use the Aether Drive, Blitz, and Frenzy tonics, and that is going to be the base build that we are going to use on every weapon here. And all we're going to need to finish these builds is basically play into what our weapon is good at. So let's start here with repeaters, which I would probably recommend as the only weapon that you're going to want to play 6 recycle on, even casually, because hitting the same part on the behemoths is incredibly easy with repeaters. So we're going to use the Malkarian repeaters, and inside we're going to have either Catalyst or 3 Assassin's Frenzy, depending on whether you want to play tonics or not, and then 3 recycle to round out the build. And we are going to be using the Savit bond on every weapon, so this is going to give us a perk summary of 6 Catalyst, 6 Cunning, 6 Overpower, 6 Predator, 6 Pulse, and 6 Recycle. Then for the mods and specials on repeaters, I would recommend the Marksman Chamber, but you can use any of the chambers if you wish, because they won't reset your recycle stacks when you use them. And you basically always use the Captain's Grip except for specific speedruns like Emmermain we have right now. And then in general, I would recommend the Tactician's Magazine mod. Precision Sights is better in particular speedruns, but I would recommend the Tactician's Magazine in general. And that's going to do it for the repeaters. Next up, we're going to talk about Hammer. Slower weapons in general are going to have a harder time with recycle because it's going to take longer to rebuild their stacks if you're +6, but +3 is going to be quite easy to manage. So for Hammer, we are again going to be running the Savit bond, and then we are going to run Catalyst and Berserker in the weapon. And if you're not running Catalyst, then you're going to throw an Assassin's Frenzy in here, or if you feel like you need some upfront attack speed, you can run Molten as a +3 instead of Assassin's Frenzy. I feel like that's a little bit better for the slower weapons, but for the Catalyst version, the perk summary is going to be the same, except for a 3 Berserker instead of your extra +3 recycle. And hey, if you want to try out +6 recycle, then you can just replace the Berserker in the weapon. And for the Hammers, mod, and special, I would generally recommend the Mighty Landbreaker special with the Extended Clip mod. And then let's go for Axe. Axe does not play well with Berserker, so we are not going to run it here. And seeing as we're running Revenant, we're going to want to avoid Berserker when possible anyway. Axe is quite good at spending stamina, so we are going to go with the Adrenaline at +3, with the other build stuff being the same. So we're going to run the Malkarian Axe with Catalyst or Assassin's Frenzy or Molten inside, and Adrenaline as our other +3 with the Savit bond. For mod and special, we're going to run the Grim Onslaught special with Overcharged Cylinder mod. So this will give you the same perk summary as Hammer, except you have Adrenaline instead of Berserker. And for our sword, we are going to do the exact same thing. Malkarian sword with the first slot being Catalyst, Assassin's Frenzy, or Molten, and then the second slot is going to be Adrenaline. For swords, mod, and specials, if you're doing like the lower power level stuff, then Valiant Overdrive is going to be better. But if you're doing like Blaze Works at level 14, then Avenging Overdrive is going to be better. And then you can use whatever mod meets your particular skill level at the moment. For an easier, more relaxed time, you can use Recursive Hilt, but if you are on the level of Dynamic Blade Core, then you can go for that. The main unfortunate thing right now here is that Pulse does not work well on sword at all, because the Avenging or Valiant Overdrive slicers are going to steal your guaranteed crits. But seeing as the weapon already comes with a +3, you do want to max it out for +6, because it is going to give you extra crit damage, and that is going to outweigh whatever you are losing from Pulse being on your sword. And you might also not like Adrenaline as much. You can go with a Berserker instead, and I would probably recommend that if you are using the Recursive Hilt mod. Plus, if you're able to keep Berserker up, then it is going to be better than Adrenaline is, and one Tendril from Revenant isn't going to be all too bad. Adrenaline versus Berserker here will just kind of depend on what you prefer. But moving on to Chain Blades, that same sort of principle applies here. You can use a +3 Berserker, +3 Adrenaline, depending on what you feel is going to be better, but I would say for Chain Blades, the argument is more favorable towards Berserker. Blade Spin will do the most DPS, and it does drain your stamina, but then you have to regen your stamina before you can use it again. And I would say because of that, Berserker does win out even without the extra Revenant Tendril there. But that means we're going to run the Malkarian Chain Blades with Catalyst or Assassin's Frenzy inside. Not really a reason to go Molten here for non-Catalyst builds, because Chain Blades are already fast enough. And like everything else, we're using the Savit bond, bond. And for the mods and specials, I would use the Reaper's Dance special with the Hurricane Blades mod. You again can try out 6 recycle. Chain blades are not a bad weapon when it comes to that. And honestly, for axe as well, axe can do pretty good with +6 recycle. But seeing as this is a general recommendation, I would only recommend +3 on both of them. Now moving on to strikers, and the same sort of things apply here. Ideally, you're going to run +3 adrenaline or +3 berserker, and I would say adrenaline would take the win here, because if you are playing strikers optimally, you should have between 0 and 11 stamina most of the time, and you'll still have that extra revenant tendril for them long boys. So we're going to use the Malkarian strikers with catalyst or assassin's frenzy inside if you're not running tonics, and we're going to use adrenaline as our +3. Once again, we run Savit Bond on all of these, and we're going to run the mod and special combo of Titan's Crash and Cyclonic Strike Plate. I really wouldn't recommend 6 recycle on strikers, because the light heavy combo in particular is usually going to hit a part that you don't want it to hit. Most notably, the body is going to be quite easy to hit accidentally on those, so unless you're a goated strikers gamer, then you should probably stick to +3. And then we have Pike, which is the other weapon aside from repeaters that can really get away with a +6 recycle, but I'll stick with our initial build first, and then I'll go over a second build that has 6 recycle as well as 6 savagery. But sticking with our initial build, our extra +3 is going to be an adrenaline. You can also run berserker, but adrenaline should get more mileage here, especially if you're going the spin to win playstyle. So we are going to run the Malkarian Pike with adrenaline, or berserker if you want that instead, and then we are going to have a catalyst or assassin's frenzy depending on whether you want to run tonics or not. And once again, we are running the Savit Bond here. And for the mods and specials, the munitions amplifier mod is the best I would recommend in general, and then you can run any of these specials that you want to. The Savage Wellspring would be the best in general, but if you're playing in a squad that already has it, then I would more likely go with the concussive payload. But Reckless Leap is a fun option that isn't really much worse, so you can run that as well. And then for the final build here, we are basically only going to be using the poking playstyle here. In it, we're going to run 6 recycle and 6 savagery, so let me go over how to do that. We're going to have the Malkarian Pike with catalyst or assassin's frenzy with the recycle inside. We're going to use the Savit weapon bond with your choice of special with the munitions amplifier mod. We are still using the Revenant Omnicell with the Skarn Lantern with catalyst or reuse inside, depending on whether or not you want to use tonics. And the armor is going to be very similar, but slightly different. For the armor, we're going to run the Timeweave helmet with cunning inside, the Quillshot chest piece with savagery inside, the Malkarian gloves with recycle inside, and the Thrax boots with pulse inside, with the Blitz, Frenzy, and Aether Drive or wounding tonics, depending on what you want to do with it. And this is overall going to give us a build of 6 catalyst, 6 cunning, 6 predator, 6 pulse, 6 recycle, and 6 savagery, or instead of 6 catalyst, you are going to have 6 reuse and 3 assassin's frenzy. I would say the experience with this version would probably be much better when you do have catalyst on, but you can still try it out without catalyst if you wish. But that is going to do it for this video, guys, the meta shock weapon builds with recycle. Again, I would generally recommend a +3, but if you really know what you're doing, then you can go ahead and max out that +6 in the weapon. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider hitting the like button for me and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you really love me, consider supporting me through a YouTube channel membership or through buying merch at TheMrTrails.store. And if you're going to be doing any purchases on Epic Games platforms, consider using my supporter creator code TheMrTrails. Make sure the A is before the I. But I have been Trevor, I go by TheMrTrails, and I will catch you guys next time.